Finally, a new 2021 album that I could give a rating other than okay to. Hate to spoil the review at the beginning, but every album that I've listened to or reviewed that's come out in 2021 so far, I've only thought was just okay. But now we finally have something that's not okay. That feels exciting. Evanescence is back with a brand new studio album, The Bitter Truth. Evanescence, the iconic metal band, is back with their 5th studio album and their first since 2017's Synthesis. And even then, that album was mostly reworked versions of the group's previous material with 2 new songs. Thus, this is their first album of entirely new material since their self-titled 2011 record. To be honest, I had no idea this album was even coming out until it showed up on my proverbial doorstep over this weekend, but I was definitely interested in listening to it. While I haven't been the biggest follower of Evanescence, I did grow up with a lot of their most iconic hits like My Immortal and of course Bring Me to Life, which, funny story, I always thought was called Wake Me Up Inside when I was a kid. And as cheesy as the song may be today, I do actually enjoy lead vocalist Amy Lee's song Broken with Seether. So even as someone that isn't deep into the group's music, I was intrigued when I heard this record was releasing, and given that it's only 12 tracks in about 47 minutes, I didn't think it would be a bad idea to give it a quick listen. And honestly, I like it. I actually like it a lot. But I do have to say I don't know if everyone else will. I've already been seeing some polarizing reception to it right now, and I can honestly understand why. Part of why this album may turn out to be so polarizing is because of the fact that it doesn't really evolve Evanescence's sound all that much. If you're familiar with their music, this album won't dramatically change their sound, and it will sound reminiscent of some of what they've done before. Personally, I'm quite okay with that, but understandably some others may not be. Regardless, there are a lot of amazing tracks on the album, like the opener Artifact / The Turn, which is a very heavenly intro that at just under 2.5 minutes is surprisingly short for a 2-part track, but it's got a slightly quirky electronic vibe to it that is also aided by Amy Lee's haunting vocals. The song then leads into Broken Pieces Shine, which slips right back into the throbbing rock vibes of their classic music. It's an almost anthemic track with excellent guitar riffs, a perfect pounding beat, and more stunning vocals from Amy Lee. The Game Is Over is something of a protest song fighting against societal pressure to put on a face and pretend everything's okay. It plays into some of the established styles of the genre, but does them excellently and with plenty of variation. And the sticky chorus and excellent lead vocals are just icing on the cake. Speaking of tracks that play around with some different ideas, Yeah Right is a bit more experimental, kicking off with a bit more of an electronic sound before kicking into something closer to what the group is used to. It still works well though, thanks in large part to Amy Lee's ability to craft catchy hooks and establish herself as a stellar presence over these kind of instrumentals. Feeding the Dark also has a few of those electronic vibes, starting out with this glitchy feel backed up by Amy giving a more hazy, haunting performance. Naturally, it kicks right back into the heavy feel with those pounding drums, though it is a bit slower than some of the other tracks. That's not a bad thing though, as it still sounds great and features more of Amy's powerful vocals. Better Without You has a very dark atmosphere, being built on what sounds like the type of sound that plays out of a snow globe or some similar type of knickknack. And the heaviness of the instrumentals combined with the plucky feel of that snow globe sound fits perfectly for the lyrical themes of the song, which tackle Amy Lee's journeys in the music industry as well as the struggles that she had to go through with the group's former label Wind Up Records. I will say that not every experiment the group tries out ends up perfectly sticking the landing. Wasted on You is a wildly different direction for the group, as for a good portion of the song, it takes on more of a glitzy, shimmering pop rock sound. It does kick into something much heavier on the chorus though. I like the idea and I think it's an interesting bit of experimentation, but I unfortunately don't find those more glossy moments as compelling, and they do kind of bring down the song just a tad. Use My Voice takes on more of a political undertone, speaking about using your voice to vote and make a change. I like the lyrical themes, but I do think the song feels a bit too familiar for me. With some of the background vocals and the build up on the chorus, it does have that vibe of a typical inspirational song. It's still plenty listenable, it's just one of the tracks on the album that I'm not quite as crazy about. Take Cover also stands as one of the rare lowlights on the album, mostly by way of the fact that it sounds a bit homogenous compared to a number of the other songs on here. I mentioned that the album doesn't take a ton of risks and mostly exists in the group's established sound, and I think this song can feel like that. It doesn't really grab me like many of the others do. Fortunately, as the album comes to a close, it picks itself back up. Far From Heaven is the album's one ballad, and while the production builds up a lot with its strings, I appreciate the amount of restraint that was shown on it. I think that allows for Amy's powerful vocals to be put on full display, which works to the song's benefit given its themes of questioning faith. Sonically, this sounds like the type of cut that could have finished the album, but the final tracks do end things wonderfully, and they also make sense as they both kind of see Amy getting out of that feeling of grief and being able to find some kind of hope. Part of Me is a track that feels like it almost comes bursting through the door as soon soon as it begins, but it ends up taking on more of a dramatic feel as it progresses. The drum beat is excellent, it blends perfectly with the bursting guitars, and it's pretty awesome. And Blind Belief, the final track, starts off eerily with its light piano melody, before naturally kicking in with that raging guitar riff and purging snare and bass drum hits. It twists between vibes all throughout, taking a few moments to be hazy and atmospheric before kicking back into that powerful bursting feel. The way it blends the two is perfect, as are Amy's vocals, and it finishes things off stunningly. So yeah, I very much enjoyed the album overall. It's a nice return to the sound that made the group so compelling in the first place, with dramatic, cinematic production and stellar vocals from Amy Lee. It's a very exciting return for the group that's dark, brooding, but throbbing and exciting and more than worth a listen. Again, I don't think it'll necessarily be for everyone, and some might be put off a bit by how little it changes up from the group's previous material. It's not exactly the biggest sonic evolution or radical tone change that some may have been expecting, but personally I don't think it really needed to be. For me, I was just hoping that this would be the type of album that reminded me of why I enjoyed the group's biggest hits in my youth, and it was that. It wasn't just a repetitive regurgitation of old music, it was a throwback with enough interesting writing, production, and vocals to keep it fresh and compelling. It's nice to hear the group make a return, and it's even nicer that they came back with such a strong album. So much so, in fact, that on my rating scale, I'm definitely going to give Evanescence's The Bitter Truth an excellent. Again, I should say it's kind of a conditional excellent because not everyone is going to be in the same boat as I am, but all in all, I really enjoyed my time with this record, and I definitely recommend that you give it a shot. It's not a radical tone shift, but it's still a very enjoyable album that I'm sure you guys will definitely be interested in. But that's just my opinion on this album. What did you guys think about it? Did you love it as much as I did? Were you way more disappointed in it? Are you just completely indifferent towards it? Whatever your thoughts and opinions are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe, thank you. If not, of course, it's no big deal. I totally understand. And if you guys want to support my passion for content creation by subscribing to my OnlyFans, where I create exclusive music review and poetry content for $4.99 a month, the link to that, of course, is in the description. Again, it's no big deal if you can't or don't want to. I totally understand. It is no sweat, and I appreciate anyone who is able to. In terms of what's next, I believe that next week Demi Lovato's new album is coming out. That's one I've definitely been looking forward to, so I will absolutely review that next week. So stay tuned for that, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.